Singing.
I'll take Manhattan, the streets and valleys of Manhattan. How about you? I'll take Manhattan. How about
Whoever wrote that song, I don't know who wrote it, but they would just be turning over listening to your lyrics.
I'll take romance. Okay.
What other New York songs do you know?
Okay. Fly Me to the Moon. Oh, yeah. Fly Me to the Moon. Frank Sinatra would probably...
Fly Me to the Moon. Well, anyway, I'm Nancy Leonard.
And I'm Arthur English.
And we're back in New York City.
We're back.
We've been around different places.
We've been all over.
We are back in New York.
We were in the South Pole, the North Pole. We were in Washington, D.C.
We were everywhere. We never left New York.
And we were Guy Lombardo New Year's Eve. And here we are the second week, somewhere around the middle of almost February.
Yeah. I have to tell you something funny. So funny. So I come into the studio.
Yeah.
And you're wearing a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I say to you, oh, nice glasses.
Yeah.
And you say to me,
yeah,
I bought them so I could see.
Yeah. You think that's, yeah. No,
I thought that was one of the funniest lines I had ever heard.
Well, the fact of the matter is, guess what? I have bought these things called readers.
Yeah.
And they're like, sometimes I paid 50 cents for them.
Yeah.
But when I went to a store yesterday and then put them on, I could say, wow, life is just really sharp.
I can't believe
but on the other,
you bought glasses to see. That's why people buy glasses.
Did I tell you I have 13 pairs of glasses at home? Really? You have one.
I'll tell you.
You've had the same pair for 25 years. I have one every week.
I do. I have the same pair. I'm wearing the same glasses that I wore when I was in high school and or something like that. My eyesight hasn't changed in all of those years. I remember when I was a kid, I had to wear corrective glasses for a while. They told my mother I had astigmatism, and in those days, astigmatism was like
yeah, it was on one of the eye test astigmatism, right?
You had 4 years to live, so they gave me glasses. Oh, it was horrible for me. But anyway, so enough about that. The reason we're talking about this is because we really have nothing to talk about today. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I can see you. That's a different thing.
Is there anything you want to talk about today?
Yeah.
What's that?
When I was in Brooklyn.
When you were at?
When I lived in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I lived in not too far from a subway.
Okay.
And what I always loved to do is to go over to the subway, and when I looked straight out, I could see the Empire State Building. And I said, I just can't wait to go to the Empire State Building.
Get to New York.
And I used to look at the track, and I said, I hate where I live so much that I would walk along those tracks, and I would be in the Big Apple, in the New York City. And still today, when I was a kid, I used to go to TV shows. I still love Manhattan. I love the way it looks, the way it feels. I love the elegance, the art of it. What about you? How about you?
About a song. What do I love about Manhattan? Let me see. What do I love about Manhattan? Well, I think it's changed over the years for me.
No question.
When I first came to New York, Manhattan represented a career for me.
Right.
I came to New York, to fulfill my career dreams. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten out of college, and I moved into the city with 3 college roommates. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, the 3 of us. I think we paid $100 and something a month. I also remember, too, my father had to co-sign for the apartment.
Yeah, wow.
Because we were just out of college, and no one would rent to us. So I talked my father into co-signing for an apartment for these 3 girls. Well, he was a nervous wreck because here he's co-signing for 3 young girls. Meanwhile, the rent was $103.
Yeah, he thought he was going to go bankrupt. I mean, but he was very happy to see you go.
No. He finally acquiesced, and he signed the lease for us. And in fact, we didn't all stay together.
Yeah.
I think we lived in this apartment for 1 year, and then we went our separate ways. But he was so nervous. Well, my God, what if they run away?
I think
how am I going to do this? I mean, it's crazy.
When I came to New York City, the first thing I wanted to do, I went to NBC and I got tickets for television shows all that afternoon. And because I was 15 years old, they used to stop me and they say, "Do you have tickets?" I say, "Yeah." "How old are you?" I'd say 17. They say, "But you look 15. I said, "I really want to be on the Kate Smith show. I won Strike It Rich." I said, "Really?" I said, "I'm going to have my own TV show one day. I want to learn how to do it."
Here you are.
And they said, "Go." And everybody started to know me. I used to go, Ben, and here's the thing that's interesting. You see, the audience can see right behind us. That's Times Square.
Back there, the crossroads of America.
And there was a sign called the camel sign.
I remember the camel sign where the smoke actually came out of the package.
Absolutely. And it used to do this. The guy been there for 27 years. And what happened is this machine sent out a perfectly round disc, and it would travel maybe 5 or 10 feet. During the Depression, when things were very bad and people were looking to make an extra buck, they would bet how far the camel's smoke ring would go. So what they do is they say, "All right, anybody want to bet?" "Yeah." "You want to bet that it's going to go 4 feet?" "Yeah." And the people would say, "No, 6 feet." And what they do is they would check the wind. They check the weather.
Was that in lieu of OTV or something?
No, but people needed money, and what they did, remember, you know why it was called the Big Apple, don't you? Make it up. You know why it was called the Big Apple?
It was called the Big Apple. I don't think I know.
Yeah.
I mean, probably if you tell me, I'm going to say, of course.
Okay, two things. Number one, when the city went into depression, people used to come down from Westchester, the very rich folks, and used to sell juicy apples in the street.
The rich people sold the apples?
There was no rich and no poor. It was like Food Line, and they said, "You know what, I'm going to sell apples, pears or whatever." But people would say, "How much is that big apple?" Says, "How much is that big apple?" The guy says, 5 cents for you. And people would make $2, $3, $4, $5 and go back to Westchester. There was always, there's also a guy called, he was called Cappy Capicella. And what happened was the racetrack was a very important part of our family's life. My father loved the track, Aqueduct. And when the horses were coming around, the last quarter, the commentators said, "And they're coming, and there is Nancy Cakes, and there is Arthur Cakes, and they're coming down the stretch for the Big Apple." And that is how that name stuck. It stuck, and people have different varieties of that. Tell me if I say to you, when you were away this past week, what did you miss? Did you miss going to the movies? Did you think about walking down Broadway? Did you think about going to Times Square or getting in a cab? What was the thing that you missed or thought about? And I know you were on the water, but can you fill us in?
I missed a good pair of walking shoes. I didn't miss anything about New York City. I didn't miss anything. I've gotten to the point where I'm like you. I am not so enamored of New York anymore.
That's true.
I mean, I can walk away from New York at any time.
Yeah,
I've actually been there, done it, seen it here in New York. Now, that may sound jaded, but then so say I. But I'm a bit jaded. I've been here a long time. And in fact, I've had a wonderful life here in New York, and I've done all these fabulous things. But I really feel that I've lived in New York at the best times of New York.
You did.
And
you did.
Now for me, it's not the best times of New York. I mean, I came to New York in the early 70s, so I've lived here in the 70s and 80s. Nothing like New York in those days.
No.
New York was great.
No.
It was great. It was almost I mean, it was so much more eclectic, and there were so many more things sort of happening.
It was exciting.
It was very exciting.
Like when you used to go to Times Square and you used to see all those theaters, or when you used to go down to Tin Pan Alley, or especially if you saw the Empire State Building.
Oh, it was great.
The Empire State Building was like really it. You know?
I mean, even as a kid, when I was a kid, I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, I know
so
that.
When I was a kid, every Sunday my mother would take us to see the Broadway shows.
Wow.
So I saw all the original Broadway shows. I saw, My Fair Lady, and I saw,
Pajama Game?
Camelot,
Pajama Game?
All of them, all the original shows.
The King and I.
And we would get dressed up.
Sure.
We would get so dressed
Sure.
up to go to the theater. You ever go to the theater now? People are wearing torn jeans.
It's true.
I mean, it's not the same.
It's really true.
You know, from what I understand, I mean, we also, every day I would get so dressed up to go to work when I first started working. Because when I first started working in television, women weren't allowed to wear pants to work.
Yeah.
It was way before the pantsuit.
Yeah.
We were not allowed to wear pants. So
Right.
every day we dressed up for work. I mean, we went dressed up to the nines
60s,
for work.
60s and 70s.
Oh, it was wonderful times. It really was
exciting.
wonderful times. So you're asking me what I missed while I was away. I mean, I wasn't that far away. I was only 2.5 hours outside of New York. It's not like I was, you know, in Timbuktu. I was still, you know, sort of in the atmosphere. But I really didn't miss much. I mean, I was very happy. I spent a week sort of by myself near the ocean, by the beach. And I find for me personally, my life has become less is more.
Yes.
Okay? There's a saying in the film business, as you know, less is more.
Sure.
Meaning when you're lighting or when you're propping or when you're whatever you're doing, less is more. You do less and it looks better. For me, that's what it's become because less is more. The choices in New York are so overwhelming for me sometimes that it gives me a headache.
Well, you know what's funny about what you're saying? There are very few people that I know that I could go to Broadway, go to a movie. Many times during the week, I go to Columbus Circle because you know why?
I'm just looking at our timer.
It really reminds me of New York City.
It's an egg beater. Wait, is it an egg timer? Just so everybody knows, this is what become our mascot. We have no way to find out if we are getting out on time, so we use our egg timer.
Okay, can I have the timer a second? That's a second. That's a second.
No.
Let me have the timer a second.
No, why?
Wait for a second.
No, what do you want it for?
Because I want to show them something.
What do you want to show them?
No, put
he wants you to hear it.
No.
There you go.
This
you
is like 60 minutes.
Only 28.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
No problem at all. Yeah, some of the things, okay. I lived right in the center of 46th Street and Lexington Avenue, right near the post office. That was my first apartment, $115. I then moved to 85th Street on the west side. I went from a one-bedroom, a little studio apartment, to a 6-room story with a garden. Okay. For me, New York City, I didn't have to go to Times Square. I never went to it. For me, New York City became Central Park. We used to go horseback riding. We used to go to the lake.
I don't mean to interrupt, but let me just say, while we're talking, do you know that my mother, just to tell you about the horseback riding, my mother, who was a poor girl growing up in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Yes.
She was a poor girl from Russian immigrant parents.
Yes.
Had her own horse in Central Park.
Beautiful, yeah. It was very.
I mean, how could she afford her own horse in Central Park? Yeah. That's an amazing thing.
Well, you talk about an icon. So living up on the Upper West Side, not too far, everyone will know, or be around 86th Street, was a stable called Claremont.
Yeah,
and Claremont was one of those an iconic stable where in the old days, in the 20s and the 30s, people, rich folks, used to actually keep and rent their carriage, their horse and carriage there.
Yeah.
Now, on many occasions, I would walk into the stable, and what I loved mostly about the stable was I loved the way horses smell.
Robert Duvall said in Apocalypse, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Are you telling me you love the smell of manure in the morning? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, before I had the courage to jump over the bars, everybody had a horse. But to be cool and like in Manhattan, we all used to like get our Jodford boots at Kaufman's, and we used to wear our hat.
You did that?
Oh yeah, of course. But one day after taking lessons for 6 months, in the evening we had a posse. 7 of us, 8 of us would go through the park like at sundown, and we used to canter and then post. So one day, everyone's leaving the park at 86th Street, right, and Central Park West. And I say, "I'm Roy Rogers. I'm going out by myself." They said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." So the horses like to follow each other. In fact, they do not like to follow each other. If one trots, the other trots. So I go, and I start to kick the horse a little bit. And now we're starting our turn, 84th Street, 83rd Street. Now this horse says, "Who the heck is on me?" And he's not riding properly. The horse makes a beeline dive completely around the reservoir. And I'm talking about I didn't know where the brake was, and I'm running. And it's like one of those rides at steeplechase.
It's right below the ignition.
I'm like saying, boy, the hat fell off. My pants started to go up. And then what this horse did, his name was Big Mac. Big Mac threw me. He stopped dead, and he threw me over his head. And I said, I got thrown Big Mac, and then I showed up at the stable. They said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I went out with Big Mac." They said, "Never, ever, ever take a horse out by himself." So what I kept on doing, I learned how to canter, and I learned how to post, and I went in the park. You know why I did it? I did love on the horse, but I wanted to be New York. I wanted people to say, "Oh, that's what I want to do. He is so New York."
Okay. The only thing I can add to that story, which by the way was fascinating, the only thing I can add to that story is, so one day I'm in Central Park, right? A long time ago, and I'm on my roller skates, and I'm doing the park loop.
Yeah.
And I've got my headsets on because I have a Walkman. It was in the days of the Walkman, which, by the way, as you know, I still have it. I love my Walkman.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've got my Walkman. I've got my headsets on. I'm on my roller skates. I'm skating around the park. I'm dancing, and I run smack into a horse. Right?
Maybe it was me.
No, it was one of the horses. Was a handsome carriage. I run smack into a horse. Right, I fall back, and the horse, thank God, steps over me.
You. Wow.
Steps over me. Otherwise, I would have been killed by a horse.
Question.
So we both had near fatal accidents on a horse. Well, that gives us something in common. But I don't. I mean, although fascinating.
I was seeing a therapist. And I sat down the next day.
Because of the horse?
I sat down the next day. My heart was broken over somebody. So
here,
5 days a week I'm with this therapist. And he said, "What happened to you? You're limping." I said, "Well, I fell off a horse." He said, "What do you mean you fell off a horse? Wait, the horse hit you?" I said, "No, I went out and I got thrown." He said, "Are you trying to hurt yourself?" And the truth was,
yes,
the horse knew better than I did. But true today, I live across the street from Claremont Studio, and guess what? It's like a ballet school, but every time I look at it, I see the word Claremont Studio, and it has the year 1890. So
that was the year Big Mac died.
What's that?
No, I said that was the year Big Mac died.
Yeah. No. So what happened is that still today, look, memories. I pass by Claremont, I think of it. We went to Times Square, look at this. The cars, the people, the Horn and Hardart, the theater.
Remember the Horn and Hardart?
Yeah.
I used to love to go to the Horn and Hardart. Do you remember Chock full of Nuts?
Of course.
There used to be Chock full of Nuts in this city.
Of course.
They made the greatest tuna fish sandwiches.
Of course.
I was, as a kid,
Cheap.
loved to go. Oh,
Cheap.
yeah. I think they were like 75 cents or something. I used to love to go to the Chock full of Nuts and get those tuna
nuts
sandwiches.
In fact, the woman who sang that was Mrs. Chock full of Nuts.
What was her name? Hello, Mrs. Chock full of Nuts? What was her first name? Her husband's name was Chock?
No, guess
what?
Full
of nuts?
My hero. Everyone will know this out in the world. Jackie Robinson, after he finished his illustrious career as a ball player, okay? And we all know how tough it was, what he did. Number 42, second base. After he retired, and retired as a hero, the first African American who was admitted also to the Hall of Fame. he was the president, but I used to remember Horn and Hardart, and you do too, where you went into this place and you put the nickels into these little compartments, and out came the sandwich. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, of course.
Chock full of nuts. That was so New York.
So New York.
I think it was just that I loved being, you know, the guy who, I told you I was the guy who looked at the railroad tracks and saw the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
I still love the city. In fact, I am a tour guide of New York City. And I love, to this day, I have nothing but books on the Empire State Building and the iconic quality of it. I know all about the buildings and the Statue of Liberty and the history, because I still love it. I really do.
Yeah,
and
I know you do.
And you know, I was a tour guide for 10 years.
I know you
10
were.
years.
And what was interesting about it was that you used to tell me that you would get out on the boat.
Yeah.
And you worked on the Hudson.
Yeah.
And you took tourists around the Hudson and
Right.
showed them the scenes from the
Right.
water, and showing them all the different interesting
it.
places around New York.
I loved
But what I always found interesting about it was that, with all due respect, most of the tourists were so-called Chinese.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. I did, and this is something maybe, if anyone needs a tour guide, you know, I'd be more than happy to do, is providing I don't have to go too far past 86th Street and 87th Street.
Or on the water.
But Nancy and I spend many days during the summer looking at the Hudson River, and I have a yearning. I have a real
'Cause we have nothing
yearning.
better to
I look
do.
at the water and I have a real yearning, because I got a job without knowing anything about Manhattan, without knowing anything about any of the icons, the buildings, the explorers, whatever. And this man said, I'll give you a break. I know you need a job. He said, go on these boats, and in 30 days I'll give you a voice test, and now you'll take people out. And I couldn't believe it. That here I was on the bow of a beautiful ship with 300 people for 5 tours a day, 1,000 people. And I would say, on the right-hand side is the Statue of Liberty. On the left-hand side is the Empire State Building. And by the way, this is the Hudson River. And I would give it examples, and I would talk about
I know you used to
just
love
the city,
doing
how it got
that,
here.
yeah.
Because the city is fascinating. For several millions of years, the Native Americans lived right here at the studio.
Yeah.
And not too close to the Hudson River. And they used to call the Hudson River, the river that flowed both ways, the tides. Henry Hudson came here in 1600, and everything has been downhill ever since. But you know, I so wanted you to, maybe this year you can come on the boat, because I know that.
No, I get nauseous. I can't go on boats.
Isn't it amazing to have someone that you really are crazy about to want to? And by the way, you did come on once.
And I had to take Dramamine.
But it was it's an exciting thing to lead people around Manhattan on a boat that's going 20 miles an hour, and you have literally you have everyone's attention. But diversification. 300 people about to come on, and I'm telling you, from every section of the world came on that boat, because guess what? This way they could see the Statue of Liberty, and when they did see the Statue of Liberty, you could hear a pin drop. I never talked about the statue, except this was a gift from France, and I would talk about the size, the shape, and so forth. But what happened was people would just look at the statue, and they'd give each other cameras, and they'd say, because the Statue of Liberty is really an icon of the world. Empire State Building, icon of Manhattan. But Statue of Liberty, whew, what a story. And you know what? When I'm talking right now, it's February. I think I'm going to apply for a tour guide. I have a license, of course, a tour guide position. And mark my word, this summer, you'll be in the Hamptons, but I would love you to just watch me pass by the Hudson River and wave.
I'll wave like the Queen.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a good trip. Bon voyage.
Talking about talking about Miss New York.
Talk about what?
Miss New York. You were Miss New York, and you still are. Remember when you used to dance around Manhattan? I mean, Central Park, and people used to come and wait for you, and look at you as you were rollerblading with all those wonderful performers and actors who just loved entertaining.
I had my own fan club for a while. I had my own fan club for a while.
Tell the West Siders and all of Manhattan about it. There are rollerbladers out there. Good.
Skaters. I wasn't a blader.
Excuse me, skaters.
I wasn't a
Start with the dancing. start with your dancing, and you're just becoming such an advocate of rollerblading, of roller skating. Tell them. Tell us a little bit about yourself as a rollerblader.
A skater.
Skater.
Well, let's see. I started roller skating in 1978.
Wow, 1978. It's amazing.
Yeah, I had met some people who roller skated at a place in New York City called Metropolis. And it was a rink that I was on in the 50s.
Wow.
And one night I went there with a friend of mine, and I put on a pair of skates, and 25 years later, I never, I still had them on. Oops, it's our time. We only have 2 more minutes left to go.
I'm so enchanted about this.
We only have 2 more minutes left to go. Thank God. Thank God. Because I don't want to talk about my roller skating days. I really feel that I don't, it's over and done with. I don't do it anymore. I'm not that interested in it.
It is interesting, and I'm just going to wind this up.
Yeah.
See, you said a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's funny now when I go to Columbus Avenue or Central Park West, or even Broadway, I think that is New York City now. It isn't the museums.
Well, actually,
it isn't Broadway.
Living uptown is like living in Midtown at
exactly.
the moment. I mean, it's,
But it's like, you remember New York City was very large and big. Right now, since we're a little bit older, it seems just getting out of the house and going to the park and maybe walking your dog or maybe going to the supermarket, that feels like New York City to me. Doesn't it feel that way to you?
Yeah. I guess so. Maybe we should just wrap this up today because it's almost time, and the time is almost over.
Okay.
So.
Well, let's give another minute. Let's introduce ourselves. Let's introduce ourselves. Let's introduce ourselves.
Okay.
You're Nancy.
I'm Nancy Leonard.
And I'm Arthur English. And the show is, if I can, it's Artist Behind the Artist, which is we're all artists behind the artist. And we live not too far from here. We live on the west side. And more importantly, we just want you to know that I'm very proud of Nancy.
I'm not so proud of myself tonight. Why don't we do this?
She resurrected my love of doing television shows. And without you, I'm nothing. And I want to say thank you on camera for really being there and making this part of my life very, very happy.
Oh, that's great.
And I really and I know that you did this not for yourself, but for me.
That's very sweet. I'm embarrassed.
Believe me.
But I don't like to talk about myself. So why do you ask me that roller skating question?
Okay. Actually, we have to wind up.
I know. Okay. So why don't you sing us out of song? That's always fun. I like when you sing. Why don't you sing a song to get us out? Do 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 do.